What up, guys, and welcome back to Thomas Reacts here on the 360 experience with myself, Thomas Mabaso.
Let's just imagine for a minute, right? We can dream. You win the election in 2024. You're going to be stuck with a massive amount of corruption that exists at the moment, right? What would be your plan to work with that corruption?
You know, guys, before Herman Mashaba answers this question, the first thing that I would tell South Africans, if I were to run for South African presidency, man, if I were to have my own political party, the first thing that I would tell South Africans is that, guys, if you elect me to power, the first 5 years, I'm going to dedicate our first 5 years in office hunting down the ANC cadres, making sure that the ANC cadres are paying for what they have done to South Africa. I think that is the message that these political parties need to run with, man. Tell the people that these guys that are acting like they are better than anyone in this country, these guys will be arrested and thrown to jail. The ANC has failed to deal with crime in this country. They have failed to deal with corruption. Why? Because they themselves are criminals and they themselves are corrupt. That's why they are failing to deal with these issues. So if I were to run for presidency, man, that is the first thing I would tell South Africans, that, guys, you put me in union buildings, first 5 years, I'm dedicating that 5 years to making sure that the ANC cadres pay for what they have done to South Africa. They deserve to pay for what they have done to South Africa. These guys are not sophisticated. I'm sure if another political party replaces the ANC, these guys would be caught in less than 6 months. We would have caught 70% of them in less than 6 months. Why? Because these guys are not sophisticated. They're simple cadres who are doing as they please without any care in the world, because they believe that the ANC will always be in power. The ANC will never be dethroned from power. So that is the first thing I would tell South Africans, that, guys, you put me in charge, first 5 years, I'm dealing with the ANC cadres, man. I don't care whether you're a president, a premier, an MMC, a councillor, or I don't care if you were. If you are implicated in any corruption, man, we are coming after you. And I think that is exactly what needs to be done. People need to be bold about that. The politicians need to be bold about holding the ANC accountable for what they have done to South Africa. These guys have literally brought South Africa to its knees. You read about the history of South Africa, man. You read about how South Africans used to work back in apartheid. You read about the industries that used to operate in South Africa. You read about how great this country used to be. But right now, in democracy, man, the country is on its knees. Why? Because we have these guys, these incompetent fools that are making sure that this country goes nowhere. We're going to gaslight the people with racism while we steal everything in this country. We're going to make sure that we divide these people in South Africa, and we're going to get away with corruption while they're busy fighting each other there, because you are white, I am black, I am a colored, I am an Indian. We will be busy stealing. That's what the ANC is doing. While you guys are fighting each other because of your color, of your skin, these guys are stealing everything. So that is the first thing that needs to be done. Every political party that it needs to do that. I don't care whether you are EFF, I don't care whether you are Patriotic Alliance, I don't care whether you are DA, ActionSA, all of these parties, they need to make it clear to South Africans that, guys, if we get in power, the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to hunt down these ANC cadres. We're going to hunt down these dogs and make them pay for what they have done to this country. The ANC has destroyed a great country, man. They have destroyed this country, and they need to be dealt with. And this question, man, shout out to Mike Shem for asking this question. This question is very important to know that whichever party that is going to replace the ANC is going to have to deal with this corruption of the ANC, and they need to be hunted down like dogs. They need to be thrown into jail for what they have done to South Africa. These guys have broken down South Africa. They have brought this country to its knees, and they have divided the people in this country. Right now, we cannot even think about building this country because we are too obsessed with the race thing in this country. We want to talk about race. Everything we have to associate it with race. That's what they have done. That's what the politicians have done. That's what the media have done, to make sure that South Africans focus on themselves and fight themselves while they steal everything. These guys, man, they need to be hunted down like dogs. These ANC cadres, man, they've bought our country, man, it's on its knees, man, guys. Do you sometimes walk around in our country? Man, right now, as we speak, in my house, like there's a sewage, man. It's coming from that block. There's a sewage right now. And you know, if one sewage blocks, all the sewages in these communities are going to block. Before you even know it, all the streets, man, will be filled with sewage. These are the kind of conditions that people are living in South Africa. These are the conditions that the politicians will never experience. They don't experience that. Better yet, these guys of the ANC, most of these guys of the African National Congress, they live there in Cape Town under the DA. You live in Cape Town because things are working in Cape Town. You don't want to live under the ANC rule. President Ramaphosa, we know that he lives in Cape Town. He doesn't want to live under the ANC rule. He doesn't want to live under what he's doing. And that is one topic that we need to talk about. These politicians who are living in Cape Town, but they are ANC politicians. They are living in Cape Town. They are presiding over South Africa.
So let's just imagine for a minute, right? We can dream. You win the election in 2024. You're going to be stuck with a massive amount of corruption that exists at the moment, right? What would be your plan to work with that corruption?
Well, I think if you look at the document, the policies that we put, and we put a lot of emphasis on, is the rule of law.
Because corruption is a rule of law issue,
yeah,
isn't it?
it's a rule of law issue. Can tell you we'll have specialized units, independent of political interference, to deal with corruption, to deal with murder. Always remind people, I grew up in this country where we had Brixton Murder and Robbery Squad. You remember those days, if the Brixton Murder and Robbery Squad were looking after you, you know they're going to get you. We need to re-establish those units. We've got to have the special units to deal with rapists. I don't want to live in a country where we're the rape capital of the world, including now the corruption. And one thing for sure, what we are seeing as ActionSA is that prison is going to be prison. It's not going to be correctional services.
And shout out to Herman Mashaba for saying that, man. Like right now in South Africa, man, crime is so rampant. We have Bekele as a minister of police, man. We know that the guy is incompetent. We know that the South African police service is incompetent. And I think it's unfair to ask South Africans to trust the South African police service, knowing exactly that these guys are working with the criminals. Everyone in this country knows that the South African police service is working with the criminals. But for some reason, people have been told not to protect themselves and not to take the matters into their own hands and to trust the South African police service. I mean, like right now, if someone wanted to get into your house, would you call the South African police service? Man, these guys, they would arrive after 20 hours. And we have been told to trust these guys. And it's a shame. It's a shame. Shout out to Herman Mashaba, man, speaking about those specialized units. We need those specialized units, man. We need to deal with fraud. You think about fraud, man. You think about the Floyd Shivambu, man. You know the Floyd Shivambu was recently exposed by Parliament Ethics Committee that this guy has received money from VBS. It only took so long because we don't have those specialized units. We don't have them. If we had the specialized units to deal with fraud, Floyd Shivambu would be exposed a long time ago. And I don't believe that Floyd Shivambu is the only person who has benefited from this VBS thing. I don't think he's the only one. I don't think so. Do you think that Floyd Shivambu is the only person? No, I don't think so. So we really need to have those specialized units, man, to deal with fraud, to deal with the kidnappings, to deal with the murder, to deal with the crime. Guys, things are like that's why I said that an administration that is going to replace the ANC needs to make sure that their first 5 years in office, man, they're going to dedicate their first 5 years in jail in office to make sure that they are throwing the ANC cadres to jail. These guys have broken down this country. And we need to have those specialized units back. We need them back. Why did they get rid of the Scorpions? This is the question that has never been answered till today. Why did the ANC government get rid of the Scorpions? We are not safe in South Africa. We are not safe. People in our communities are not safe. They know that we are not safe. We don't have the police. The South African Police Service are not the police. We don't have the police in our communities. And our country in general, it is not safe because we don't have borders in this country. And you look at what's happening right now in the world. You look at the wars that are being fought right now in the world. And to think that, man, South Africa, man, like, they can easily destroy us. South Africa can easily be destroyed by some of these terrorists. It can easily be destroyed because we don't have borders in South Africa. People are working in and out as they please right now in South Africa because we don't have the borders. You remember last time there was that story of a fire that killed several SANDF members. I read a report saying that the defense minister was going to attend to a crime scene where several SANDF forces were lost, only to find out the defense minister is Thandi Modise. Thandi Modise is a defense minister of South Africa. Thandi Modise. Guys, we are not safe in this country, man. Just imagine, Thandi Modise is your defense minister and Bheki Cele is your police minister. And they don't care about the safety of African South Africans. It screams like they don't care about the safety of African South Africans. Just imagine, man, Thandi Modise, man, this lady was there in Parliament doing the worst terrible job in Parliament, and right now she's a defense minister. Do you think that this lady, man, can defend the South Africans against these terrorist groups? They will never. They will never, man. If terrorists want to come to South Africa to destroy South Africans, man, they will do it in a heartbeat because we don't have the borders in this country. We are not safe in this country, man. That's why people who come from outside of South Africa, they simply work in South Africa and they do as they please. You can see what the Somalis and the Bangladeshis and all of these guys are doing in our communities, man. They are causing a havoc. People are dying because what? These guys are making up their own food. They are making up their own medicines. And they are selling this stuff to the people in our communities. And people are dying as a result of that. And there's nothing that has been done about it. Last time in Soweto, man, people in Soweto, man, they need to keep the pressure on. Shout out to the people in Soweto, man. They need to keep the pressure on. Because 2 kids in Soweto died last week. 2 kids, they've died because they bought some biscuits to some of these Somalis or whatever. And they died. And people are furious, man. To think that, guys, we've been complaining about this stuff for such a long time. And nothing has been done about that. Our people, man, are being forced to consume the food that has been sold by these Somalis and the Bangladeshis. These guys are making up their own things. They're making up their own food. They're making up their own medicines, man. You cannot say you go to a shop right now in your community to say you want to buy grandpa, man. Chances are that grandpa was made somewhere there. And nothing has been done about that. How many people have been sick in our communities, man? Because of these guys. Nothing has been done. People come from outside of South Africa, man. They live with African South Africans and they're selling the drugs to South Africans. And there's nothing that has been done about that. Nothing has been done about that, man. Even that guy of Mojalav, shout out to Kolani from Mojalav. He tried to fight this thing of drugs, man, in South Africa, but he will never win. Because you know that these guys, they used to catch the criminals red-handed live on national television. Guess what? Next week, the criminals is on TikTok. They're making fun of Kolani. They're actually making fun of South Africans and they're making fun of our justice system. We don't have a justice system in this country. We don't have a justice system. So you are not safe in South Africa. Our country is not safe and the people inside this country are not safe under the ANC government.
Prison is going to be prison. It's not going to be correctional services. For these people who are destroying our nation, you're going to pay back to society. I'm sure you must have read in the media how I was defeated because I believed very strongly that you can't fix this country without bringing back the death penalty. But when I started engaging my team, they put forward a very compelling case against the death penalty. They said, Herman, you bring back the death penalty, firstly, you're going to have a problem. You're going to end up actually killing poor people because they're not going to have legal representation. Secondly, And also more seriously is that the current government over the last 29 years, they've destroyed the criminal justice system. Our prosecutors, our detectives, and some of our people in the judiciary, you cannot trust them. So this, unfortunately, we cannot kill people in an abnormal environment like that. But we agreed that in the event, Mike, you kill someone in this country and the courts find you guilty and they give you life sentence, it's going to be life sentence with hard labor. You're going to work and pay back society. We take your right to vote because we cannot understand how a normal human beings, ethical people can expect their political life be determined by criminals, by criminals who have destroyed our own lives. So we'll take away the writing votes of certain categories of crime. Those who are serving the life sentence, serving long the terms, who have really harmed society, they will never give them the right to vote. And the corruption will put together a team. We will work with other international agencies to help us as a matter of agency to train our people and take our people to these agencies so that we must be better than even the Scorpions, how it was before time. But obviously this cannot really happen overnight. You won't be able to deal with this overnight. But we can begin the process. And I strongly believe if we are prepared to take tough decisions. And one thing, fortunate enough, I was born not to be afraid of taking tough decisions. I'm not the kind of person that takes decisions to really please Mike. No, I take decisions that are in the best interest of society, because the decision that I take, the work I do, Mike, every decision I take in a political environment, I take it on behalf of 60 million people. So I must take my own personal interest and feelings out of this and really be able to take, when I take a decision, it must be a decision that is in the interest of the 60 million South Africans.
And Herman Mashaba, man, mentioned something so important, man. I think it's a joke, and I think it's a slap in the wrist. It's a slap in the face of South Africans, man, because right now, when these criminals are thrown to jail, man, they are having a good time there in jail. These guys are having a good time. I've said this before, that these guys are having a good time in jail. These guys, they have cell phones in jail, they have televisions, these guys, they have the internet, they have YouTube channels, they are doing the TikToks, they are doing the jokes, they are laughing, ha ha ha. And these are the same people, man, who have harmed the people. So someone comes to your house, they try to kill you and your family, and this person is thrown to jail. And when this person is in jail, they are having a good time in jail. And the worst part is that you have to pay for it. Someone terrorizes you and your family, and you're going to have to pay for their food in jail. This whole thing of correctional service is not working, man. Jails need to be jails. People need to know that if you go to jail, man, you're going to wish that you never went there. Those guys in jails, man, they need to get the harshest treatments. Because you need to understand that if you are found guilty of this and you're gonna go there, man, it's done with you. It's done with you. That is the only way you can rehabilitate the criminals, by being harsh on them. This whole thing of saying that the criminals also have the rights, this whole thing of protecting the criminals, this is why the criminals, they don't care about the citizens of South Africa, man. They don't care about going to jail. You send a criminal to jail, man, it is nothing to them. They have their friends there, they have their cell phones waiting for them, they have their comfortable beds waiting for them there. You are taking them on a holiday, basically. Someone comes and terrorizes you and your family. This person, and you report the crime, and this person is taken to the jail, and this person is having a good time in jail. They are not even punished, man. They are not punished. This is why I said the other day, I said that, guys, I know that Ronald Lamola goes around saying that it is not a jail, it's a correctional services. Guys, we need the statistics right now. We need the statistics right now. How many people have been rehabilitated in our jails? How many people can we say that this guy was a hardcore criminal, he went to jail, he come back, now he's working for the community? How many people have been rehabilitated? Because this whole thing of trying to rehabilitate criminals that are terrorizing our communities, man, it is doing nothing to us. It's a slap in the face to us, because how can we pay for the food of these criminals that are terrorizing us? Man, these guys, they need to feel it, man. You need to feel it, man. When you go to jail, you need to feel it that you are in jail. Simply go to YouTube, man. Watch those documentaries and see how the criminals are treated in countries like Nicaragua, Indonesia, even in Africa, man. In Africa, I think in Ghana or somewhere. If you go to jail, man, you're gonna wish your mother to come and pick you up. Things are bad in those jails, man. You can feel it that, man, this is the worst place that I could come to. If I get out of here, man, I'm never coming back here. That is the only way to rehabilitate a criminal. To be harsh on a criminal, to take away their rights, and make them understand that what you have done to the community, and you're going to work hard labor. Shout out Herman Mashaba, man, hard labor. These guys, they need to work for the communities, man. They don't need to rest. They need to work for the communities every day. We need to have the trucks, man, that are taking these guys. These guys, they need to work for the communities. It doesn't matter whether you are lazy, you are a nyaupe addict or what. You're going to work for the community. You're going to clean our communities, and you're going to... These guys, man, they need to be treated harsh. That's why criminals are doing as they please in South Africa, man. It doesn't matter. When you go to jail, you know that you're going to eat. You know that you're going to watch television. You know that you're still going to access the outside world, basically, because you have the internet. It's a slap in the face to the hard-working taxpayers of this country, man. Having to pay for criminals that are terrorizing them. It's a slap in the face.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that really affect people, socially. You spoke about dignity. These are issues that fall squarely in the realm of dignity. Let's start off with education, right? Because every parent wants to educate their children, and at the moment our schools are not performing very well.
They're a disaster. 80% of public schools are dysfunctional. Right. Let's call it what it is.
A disaster, man. It's a disaster. It is not functional. It is a disaster. Our public schools are a disaster. And our people are saying nothing about that. This is why I have a bone to pick with black people. We say nothing about these things, man. We say nothing when we see the sports being deleted from our schools, man. Like the schools right now in our townships, they don't have sports. Kids are not participating in nothing. Kids are not participating in nothing. When schools are closed, schools are closed. That's why these kids are so tempted, man. That's why they are having kids all around the place. That's why they are drinking. That's why they are using the drugs, because they are doing nothing. Our schools, men, have turned into shit. And there's nothing that black people have said. You know, right now, black people are simply working hard so that they can take their kids to these Model C schools. I used to say white people schools, and they said, now, Thomas, stop saying white people schools, say Model C schools. Right now, black people are working hard so that they can take their children to Model C schools. We want nothing to do with our public schools. And it is our fault as people that we have allowed a situation where right now our schools have turned into dump. It is dump what's happening in our schools right now. And you think about the literacy, man, like majority of young people in this country, they cannot read or write. But for some reason, they still pass matric. They still pass matric. These guys, they cannot read, they cannot write, but they pass matric. 30%. 30%, man. 30%. This is what we are living with right now. Kids are doing nothing in school, man. I remember back when I was in high school, man. I remember being told that, man, you will never be part of this high school if you don't take any participation in any sports or any other activities that the school has. It's either you go to the debates, or it's either you go to the choir, or it's either you go to the sports. You're going to have to pick something. You can't just go to school and go back home. You can't do that. We were told that. That's how schools used to be. Back when I was in school, that's how things used to be. We were told that you will never be accepted in this school if you will not want to participate in anything. If you simply want to go to the class and go back home, this is not a school for you. And our schools used to be like that, but now they are not. And our communities are not doing anything about that. They are taking their kids to these Model C schools, only for them to cry racism when their kids are not being accepted in some of these schools. They don't want to fix their own schools in their own communities. They want to take their kids to these Model C schools, and they cry racism when their kids are not being accepted in one of these schools. Because they take their kids in high numbers, man. The kids in town, like right now, the Model C schools are filled with black children. It doesn't have to be like that. Education, man, like the education system, they get a huge budget. I think they get the biggest, they get the biggest piece of pie when it's budget time. These guys, they get the biggest piece of a pie. But you look at our education system, you look at how our schools are, and the fact that today in South Africa in 2023 we still have young people who are dying in pit toilets. It's shameful. It's shameful. Right now schools, they cannot even, man, they can't even supply the stationery and everything. Back then you would pay school fees, and in that school fees, man, you would have everything. Right now, some of these schools you can pay school fees, but you still have to buy the stationery. That's how worse things are right now in South Africa. Especially when it comes to our education system, man, that thing is a shame.
Okay, so they're dysfunctional. How is our ActionSA government going to deal with education once you're in power?
First of all, we take SATU out of education. We will have one department of education to start with. One of our post-policy the adoption was the fact that our cabinet will not have more than 20 cabinet ministers. The ministers. It will not have a single deputy minister. We don't need that unnecessary bureaucracy. So we'll have one department of education. We'll take SATU or any trade union to decide who's the principal of the school and the teachers. We will ensure that we bring back school inspectors, which the current government is not allowing school inspectors without any doubt. For us as ActionSA, is not negotiable. Once we take over...
Yo, the specters, guys. You remember we used to have the specters in our schools. I remember in some Fridays, man, we would clean the school and make sure that everything is proper because the specters are coming. But today, man, these kids today, man, they know nothing about the specters. Our schools used to be in tip-top because you wouldn't know when the spectre was going to come. So schools always, the schools were clean. The schools were clean. Everything was proper because you wouldn't know the date of the spectres. But right now, the spectres are not coming. Jesus.
With the department, the Minister of Education must, with immediate effect, make sure that all the schools are actually led by ethical, committed schools principals in conjunction working with the community. Because the community must also be happy with this kind of person that we are recommending for them as government, not as trade unions. And our school inspectors, they don't need anyone's permission to visit the schools at any point in time. We'll bring back all these retired teachers, retired at the age of 60 by this government, which retired people with experience. But you look at the new ones that are coming, they're coming out with a 30% pass rate. What we are saying now, we're going to really, I'm already personally making a request, an appeal to South Africans, anyone under the age of 75, please, we need your intervention. If you're a teacher or you're a policeman or woman and so forth, please come back and serve. We're looking for professional policemen and women. We're looking for school principals. We're looking for school inspectors. We want to really bring them back into the STEM. We want to invest as part of the Opportunity Fund. We want to invest heavily in boarding schools because a lot of our kids born in the last 29 years with young children as young as 10 years old, they're having children. Children are having children. So you can imagine that kind of normality that was allowed by this current evil government. We need to now invest in boarding schools where these kids can be taken out of this out of the current environment in which they live. Going to boarding schools run by proper ethical people. We have in every school, boarding school, even schools, there must be psychologists and so forth, because these kids were born and raised in a very abnormal environment. So it's not just really the teaching to learn, for them to teach them to know 1 + 1 is 2. You have to start really bringing their morals back and actually protect them from the ills of society under which they were born. While we're building the society, let's take these young kids out of this environment. So we want to invest in boarding schools. We want to invest in technical colleges where the kids of this government they failed to provide them with proper education at early stage of their lives. By the time they reach 18, 17, 18, the type of education, they cannot go to universities. We said, please, we are opening the army. You're allowed on a voluntary basis. You can come and serve on a voluntary basis in the army for a year so that we can really prepare you. We must invest in technical colleges so that we can have bricklayers, carpenters, and so forth. Because we need to rebuild this country. We need those necessary skills. So this gives you a sense of how we intend tackling the education crisis we are facing right now.
So guys, you listen to these things that Herman Mashaba is outlining, man, and you, like, the only thing that comes to my mind when I listen to Herman Mashaba outline these policies of ActionSA, man, it's like the ANC, man, has destroyed this country so much, because what Herman Mashaba is talking about, most of these things that he's talking about were there. The specters, they were there, man. These investigating units, they were there, man. We had law and order in this country, man. We had electrical border fences, man. Like, all of these things that Herman Mashaba is talking about, they were there, but for some reason, man, they were destroyed. So guys, what are your thoughts, man? What are your thoughts on what Herman Mashaba has said? What are your thoughts? Please tell me what you think on the comment section. Don't forget to hit that like button. And the most important part is subscribe. My name is Thomas Mabaso, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.